Happy
Hi,
week two!
happy week two. Welcome to Teaching in Scrubs.
It has been a long 2 weeks of teaching in scrubs,
Yeah, why is that?
but great. It's
I
been
know.
exciting.
How are you feeling?
I am feeling similar to previous semesters. It is always a grind. There's always a lot of like making sure logistically that everything works out and a lot of stress related to that. So it feels exhausting. But also there's another part that when you get a good outcome, it's invigorating. Like one of my first days, I felt like, oh, I never want to do this again. This was a lot of logistics. And then at the end of the day, I was like, oh, we need to do this again.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of that lead up. And again, it's that roller coaster piece. I'm like, man, I rode that roller coaster a lot the last 2 weeks. And so just trying to balance that with it's so worthwhile and it sets the rest of the semester up really well, but it's exhausting. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. This is the part where we've worried about all these details. And so a level of planning is paying off, right? Like I'm reminded, well, one thing I'm reminded of is this is just so fun because this is the part where you're getting to know people, right? It's only week two. So you're getting to figure out who are the quiet ones, who are the nervous ones, who are the ones who are super confident, right? And so it's just fun because you're exploring, you're getting to know these people that you're going to work with for the next semester. And that's the reason we're all here, right? Is to get to do that. And the other thing that I'm reminded of is how much those details matter because I was just talking to somebody last week as we were putting on simulations, the simulation stuff, and we were both just laughing about you can do so much work behind the scenes and make this really great production, but if you don't tell people where to go in the morning, then it doesn't, all of that is kind of like wasted, right? It's not wasted, but it's just, and we realize like, oh, wait, if we just actually tell people what room they're in, then it all goes perfectly, right? And so they're like the little things that sometimes that people are like, yeah, 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 people will figure that out. But it's those things that matter sometimes. And um, it's just been a really good week. I'm excited to keep working with this group, and I feel like we've got a fun team of faculty as well. So I'm
Absolutely.
I'm happy. We're off to a good start.
And the
Um,
planning is paying off. I love that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like, we start working on this a couple months ahead of time in terms of planning. And we've done this before, but we're still going through going, okay, how can we make it better?
Yeah.
So yeah, planning's paying
That
off.
continuous, and I think that's the part where, like, as a clinical faculty, you've got your own kind of feedback mechanism. And as you get more and more experienced, you think of like more, ways you can branch out and meet learning needs differently and things like that once you're more comfortable in the role. And I think the same for us. We're like on this continuous quality improvement cycle. It doesn't stop once you have a good product. You keep trying to be dynamic and flexible with the times and the locations, right? That's the other thing that's always constantly changing. How do we meet the students' needs? How do we meet the new faculty's needs, the returning faculty's needs, and make sure that we are keeping up to date with practice?
Yeah, I think what you said about I want to do this again is really important because it's easy and as a new clinical faculty to go, oh my gosh, that was really hard. I'm never doing that again, right?
Right.
But if you do it again, you realize next time, oh, I know what I'm doing, right? And I mean, hopefully people kind of get that feeling a few weeks into the semester and
Yeah.
go, okay, I'm rocking and rolling. I know the routine. But kind of the same goes for like another semester down the road, especially if you do a nice job of keeping notes of what you did on the first day, what you do on the second day. Then you can kind of go back and go, oh, this is my plan for a day one. This is my plan for an orientation. And it
Mhm.
starts to, and then you improve on that.
Yeah.
Like just last
Right. So
week.
keeping your emails and things that you sent the first time around so that you can just update those or the notes on your phone, your checklist.
Yep.
It becomes once you've developed these tools, it that helps too. That
Yeah.
helps that
You've
you're
got
not
this
having to
structure
do
that
everything.
you can just polish off and use again.
Yeah.
Um, this week we wanted to kind of wrap up this series we had put together in the beginning of the semester, which was starting big picture semester overview, then kind of zeroing in on what a clinical day looks like. And we wanted to kind of wrap things up with some kind of special circumstances, things that come up, questions that come up a fair amount that are worth addressing for newer people. One of a big one is medication administration. So I thought we could start with that if that sounds good.
Absolutely. And one of the number one questions we get, right? If we have a big group in person that we are talking to and onboarding, once you get through the what do I do before the first day? What do I do on the first day? Then if it's a clinical where you are giving medications, it is the number one question because it's the number one focus that you end up having as a clinical faculty. It's where you spend your time. It's very busy.
Yeah. I feel like you are kind of a master at giving meds and being able to do it with multiple students beautifully and with a smile on your face. I feel like I have a big challenge with doing meds with more than two people in a day. And it may be a function of the experience level of the students I work with,
Right?
but I'm curious, on the whole, what's your best advice for giving meds on a day with when you've got a group of 8 to 10 students?
It's a great question. And you are so right. You have a lot more clinical experiences with people who are brand new to giving meds versus I have people that have given meds for a year. And now I'm just trying to like brush the rust off, right?
Right.
And get us up and running. So because it's been a year for me and they're kind of further along in their program most of the time, or at least 3 semesters in where they've been giving meds for 1 or 2 semesters, right? Versus you have them giving meds the first time. Um, I still do an initial assessment, whether the school I'm teaching with gives me a space to do that, or I do it in the break room on the unit. I do something to where I give all 8 or 9 a scenario, and then I get them to walk me through. And then usually there's some tactile psychomotor piece to it too, so I can see that. I will usually have, so no one feels put on the spot, I'll have them all do it at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of chaotic, but I'm watching for certain things like safety checks, needle safety, So a sub-Q injection is one that is very straightforward because you can assess a lot. And that helps me because everybody's at different levels and experience. And I kind of know who it helps me make my assignments around what type of patient and what type of medication list I'm going to choose to walk in there with,
Right.
right? You want to keep it simple and straightforward at first because on a lot of the units we teach on, the patient can have like 30 morning meds,
Right.
trying to pick a patient that was just admitted and has 5 meds, or they have 30 meds, but I talk to the nurse and I'm just going to give the sub Q in the secondary or the PO.
Yeah.
Some of those things really weigh heavily into my first couple of weeks of giving meds.
So just to back up, what you're doing in that first exercise is setting up almost a deliberate practice kind of skills situation where you're giving them supplies, they're doing it in a not with a patient, you can see everybody and you kind of see what their ability level is and
Yes.
just doing it. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Similar to if I were precepting a new grad, right? In my very first day, I'm going to choose a situation where I can see where they're at to build from.
got it.
And in this case, I'm trying to see where they're at to build from. Because I feel like even though I know their curriculum, where they're coming from, I've asked them their experiences and what they feel like they need to work on, just for safety purposes, it is still helpful for me to see that one um, kind of play through because I kind of see people's confidence level, how quick they are, timing, and then again, those safety checks. Like, how much am I going to have to be kind of coaching them through versus facilitating for the med
Yeah.
pass?
Do you,
And when they're brand new, you're going to be coaching and facilitating everything because it's brand new for them, right? And so
right.
even that, you're going to slate more time for each person.
I want to talk about that, but I want to go back to what you just said about going in and having somebody who's got a really complicated med record and they need 30 meds, right? How do you, so are you saying you would kind of pick versus going, I'm going to go take on this big bulk of meds. I'm going to go pick we're going to do this insulin injection, maybe we'll do Tylenol and maybe something else, and then not do the rest and communicate that with the
Right.
RN. Okay.
Communicate extensively.
Right.
And then so, and this is, I have to share two real world experiences of where I got this from. I did not come up with this on my own. Number one was trying to do all the medications and having the nurses get really frustrated with me and realizing I need to think about something different. And number two, because you always look to your other clinical faculty colleagues to give you new ideas and inspiration. My friend Joanna is a great clinical faculty. Shout out to Joanna. Um, I actually saw her doing that. She's like, I'm giving heparin with everybody today, all 8 of my students.
Mm,
And that's what we're
nice.
going to do today. I got
Yeah.
enough patients who need it. I can practice with them all together and then we can go do it. And then they will have all done it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then she just communicated with everybody, we're
Right.
going to give heparin on your patient. That's it. And it was really clear and concise. So I also try to be consistent with that. If we're going to do a sub Q and a IV today, I do it for everybody so that there's no miscommunication.
Right.
Um,
Right.
if I tell one group of students this is the plan and one, it can get a little muddy. So the nurses I found appreciate that as well. That was my like aha moment of the nurses are frustrated with me. What am I going to do? And then my colleague had that plan in place. And I was like, that's brilliant because I never feel like I can do that the first day. And now I can.
Yeah.
So
That's a great approach.
yeah, that helped a lot. And then from there, it is um, trying to do 2 or 3 students in the morning, 4 if I can. Right, again, you got to have the right situation, the right patients available to you, the right med list, and the right nurses who are going to be patient and are willing to kind of have that communication and plan. Sometimes
Hmm.
that doesn't always work out. And then in the afternoon, so that might be 8, nines, tens, and I kind of like picked a few things, or I'm going to do eights with you, nines with you, tens with you.
Right.
That works. That's probably what gives me the best ability to do 4 in the morning.
Right.
And then if you have a long enough shift, when my clinicals have finished early afternoon and we've got to go to post conference, then I've done 12s and twos with the other 4.
Okay.
If we're there longer till like 4 or 4:30, I've had a little bit better opportunity to do like make sure I get 4 students in the afternoon. Sometimes it
Okay.
was 4 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. But if we're there longer, so 6 was probably my most consistent. But being able to do them with everybody, if it's like a 12-hour shift, that's, definitely
Yeah.
can get them
Well,
in.
and maybe I need to
Um,
give myself a break because I'm I'm thinking that how do you do that in 4 hours? Well, you're not doing it in 4 hours, so that's part of the
yeah,
difference
yeah.
there too.
Every clinical is set up differently. And so you kind of work within the parameters and the resources that you have. And then every day looks differently. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's also like, oh, we can give TPN before we leave.
Right. Right.
That is always a decision you make with lots of care because you're going
Yeah,
to be in
yeah.
that room for 45 minutes
Right.
at least. And so those are things you choose to do as the semester goes on. The other thing is, you know that if it's just someone brand new, even if you pick only a few medications, it can take upwards of 45 minutes to give meds with one
Yeah.
person because not only is they're giving meds to a real person and they know this is important, there's also an element of scared of making a mistake
Yeah. Yeah.
that
I
slows
think
things
we do a good
down.
job in nursing school of scaring that into people, and some of them are just petrified of doing
Yeah.
something wrong.
Right. And they're very aware of, major med events that have
Yeah.
happened in the media, right? And so they're very worried about that, rightfully so. Um, and the other piece is oftentimes the integration of the technology and the barcode scanning and the interoperability, right? Depending on the setting that you're in, might be different than what's at the school, might be different than what they've seen at another hospital. So even if they are experienced, but they're at a new site, that's another kind of, it's going to take longer to get used to the new routine and the new equipment.
Right. Right.
And so just kind of planning that
Yeah.
going into it.
I wanted to just kind of touch on some of the things that are maybe a little different for me with not brand new students, but first time giving meds that I really try to focus on is um, fundamentals and refocusing on 3 checks and 5 rights, right?
Mhm.
Because as a nurse, you're not verbalizing those every time, but you're doing them, right? We hope.
Right.
But so when a student is observing a nurse give meds, they're not seeing, oh, this person is doing the 3 checks and the 5 rights. They're just seeing them grab the meds out of the Pyxis, walk into the patient's room, scan, put the meds in a cup, or. So they're not seeing that. So what I try to do is make sure that I'm re-emphasizing you are taking this out of the Pyxis. This is the first check. You are making sure that what you are taking out is indeed Tylenol or acetaminophen, 325 or 400, whatever. That to me, I push that because I want people to develop that habit and remember, like, oh, I got to make sure this med is actually what it says it is. And and then getting in before you even go in, thinking of the 5 rights, like, why are we going to give, like, going through that and then going through it at the bedside. So it feels, it feels kind of basic, but it's really important to just develop that foundation, I think, for new learners. And the other thing that I think is really important, so in the part of the reason it takes a long time in the beginning is because I'm standing there at the Pyxis, watching them take things out, right? Watching them have to count all of the controlled substances, do the inventory. Um, so that does take extra time. And then going,
Yeah.
okay, what supplies are we going to need? Oh, we need a pill cup. Yeah, so go get a pill cup, right? And so what I'm also trying to do is, I think we've talked about this before, is keep my hands in my pockets. And that is what takes a long time here, is letting the students do all the things. So if you need a pill cup, go grab a pill cup. If we are halfway through into the patient's room and you didn't get a glass of water, it would be much easier for me to go, I'll just go get a glass of water. I'll be right back. Nope, go get the glass of water, right? So, because
They'll
that's
remember
how
next time.
they will remember it next time. And that takes so long because
Mhm.
it's hopefully eventually they're going to go, oh, I know what supplies I need. But in the beginning, it feels excruciatingly long. And
Yeah.
so as a
Or I
clinical
need alcohol
faculty,
preps and saline
right,
flushes and yeah.
right. Yep, you should go get them. And I'll just stand here and talk to your patient while you go get the stuff, right? Um, Same goes for standing at the bedside. Like I literally, this is the hardest part of where I'm keeping my hands in my pockets is during med pass because I'm going to let them open up the pill containers, which they might have never done before. This isn't your Tylenol at home. And if you did it in sim lab, it was still probably like an easy tear, whereas these are like the
Right.
blister.
And it goes
So,
flying
and they're
everywhere.
all different. Yeah, it goes flying. One's a push through, one's a rip, and one's a ching, goes across the room. So, but letting them open those things and just get the tactile functioning of that, letting them figure out how to draw up the med, open up the saline flush, get the air bubble out. Like those things take a long time. And I'm
Right.
standing there going, you didn't take that air. Like I'm going to watch them. And if they get close to that lure lock without having taken the bubble out, I will say, bubble. And they'll go, ooh, right. But I'm going to
Yeah.
let them process as much as they can while being safe. And that part just takes a long time.
Well, and I think and that's one of those things where to build those really solid routines and to keep hands in the pockets, that's why I'm a big advocate of that one med piece. Because that's the other part is once we get into the more complicated multiple draw ups, one's in an insulin syringe, one's in a 3 milliliter syringe, a lot of times we're there to facilitate and make sure all the safety checks are being met. We're doing the double check before they give the med, but we're also trying to talk to the patient, make them feel less stressed out.
Right, right.
But once you get to that drawing up multiple medications, you can't turn your back and talk to the patient.
Mm-mm.
You have to make sure they pulled up the right thing in the right syringe. And, it's one of those where even when you think they're more experienced, you still have to help them with those more complex. Even though they might seem, fundamental, they're still complex at that point, really till they graduate and they're doing it for 12-hour shifts 3 times a week, right?
Yeah. Um, I also just want to emphasize the importance of coordinating with the RN because that has bitten me in the butt before. And I've gotten barked at, and it was my own fault, right? We took on too many meds and we got behind, and no one wants to be behind, right? It doesn't look, it's not me that looks bad. It's the RN who's it's reflected upon. Um, so yeah, being really diligent about updating them on what you've done and when you did it and is always really helpful. And but I love the concept of trying not to take it all and taking just a few and
Yeah.
being able to focus on that. Otherwise, it's overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing is, I have taught in situations where we didn't have barcode scanning, right? If you're in
Mm,
a special area or if you're in a place where it hasn't been adopted there yet fully.
hmm
I've had situations where when we do kind of make a plan, I have literally had the students write out 9 o'clock meds, insulin, or whatever it is. Because when you don't have that documentation of I just gave it, it's so easy for them because they're in a routine to go in and give that insulin at 12. They do all
Yeah.
their checks, they do all the safety things, but in situations where you don't have that real-time charting, it can be muddy. And
Yeah.
so I have reverted back to almost like the post-it note on the wow kind of thing, to make sure that we're all on the same page, um, for that same reason. The communication breakdown, is so real because it gets busy.
Yeah. We had our EHR system went down in a couple months ago for several hours and we had to give meds. I mean, it was such a good experience for our students, but the nurses, some of them were like, "Yeah, it's fine." Other ones were like, "I've dealt with this before," right?
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
we were
It
having
is
to
stressful.
document meds and go like, "Okay." And there was God, it might have even been like a heparin sign off, but we're literally like, "Okay, I'm going to do this calculation. You do this calculation. Let's compare and make like it was so deliberate and I was proud of us, but the students were like, "Oh, I see. I see how this works." Because yeah, it just requires an extra level of we have no guardrails. Let's make sure
Right.
we're being safe. What do
Yes.
you consider a failure in a med pass?
For me,
Got
it's missing
ex
safety checks, or not doing pre-assessments, right? If they don't do, before it's their time to give meds, if they haven't done their checks for what the type of meds are, what is the pre-assessments I need to get, what labs do I need to look at, sometimes that's enough for me to say, we're not going to give meds at this time. Let's let your nurse know, right? Because they haven't done that part of the expectation. And again, that's more for an advanced learner.
right.
For someone who is newer, it is, a near miss, right? You have your hands in your pockets, you let them do it, but in real life, you stop them, right? And you take over at that
Mm-hmm.
point. So that's one where it is a, coach remediation, fail that scenario. The other piece is if they made it through with my facilitation and help, this is the serious one for me. There's two. If they made it through, I had to help them a lot, and they have no situational awareness of how many times they breach safety. That one's a clear fail for me. The other one that's a clear fail for me is not focused and treating it as a task
Mm-hmm.
in a really serious situation with high risk meds, or any meds. And they're not taking it seriously and they're distracted on their smartwatch or their phone or about something that happened in their personal life. That's another one where we're not giving meds for a day, and that's a does not meet.
Yeah. Mine are usually, see, because I have such new people, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to fail them. Everybody does that. Well, not everybody does that, right? But I think missing a scan, you know, being so wrapped up in the tasky part and not recognizing, hey, we're giving this person a medication that's going to change their blood pressure. So we need to be on task. Or like last semester, I mean, truly, it comes down to just not being engaged, right? Like there are things sometimes that I'm going, yeah, that's a challenge to maybe know the answer to that. This goes back to me trying to give all the meds too. Like, I don't know what that is. Let's look it up together. So I feel a little bit like a hypocrite to go, you should know what every one of them is when I didn't know what this really
Oh, yeah.
weird specialty drug was.
Right.
But not being engaged and maybe just trying to go fast enough so that they impress me as the clinical faculty because they don't want to look bad when they're not focused on the safety part. So it's just kind of an underlying, I'm using my spidey sense to go, that wasn't safe, and here's why. But you missed scanning it, and you just gave this Tylenol and we didn't scan it, right? Like that actually happened last semester. Partly it was my fault too, I remember, but it was a good learning experience for the student and I. And there was a lot going on in the room. It was one of those like, wait, did you take this? And but that's always a good. And the student was like, oh, what happened? I'm like, it's okay. You made your first med error, and it's fine, And this is what happened, and they were appropriately concerned about it. It's the people who aren't appropriately concerned about it that you want to make sure get formative feedback and understand, right? So, but it's hard. It's hard with new people too because they're so afraid of failing that it's like, well, what does failure actually look like?
And for those, it ends up being a pattern of like, we've given this med twice now. You know it needs to be cut in half, or you know you need to check these things before. But yes, any other time, if it's a brand new med for all of us, you're role modeling. Here's the direct link to the drug book. Let's look it up. Let's look at the therapeutic management section for nursing. And what are we supposed to do, and what are we supposed to assess? I think that's such a great learning opportunity. I love that part of MedPass. I'm like, we can slow down and make sure we're safe because we are in learning mode versus, um, you know, full patient care mode.
Yeah,
Although we want to be efficient, though that part is always kind of a great opportunity to role model good practice and never expecting, no one's ever going to know every med, right?
right,
But it's once it becomes that pattern of they're not retaining the learning of the experiences where it could get concerning.
right. One thing I like to do when I do meds is before we go into the room, connect outside of the room and go, okay, this is what we're going to do, right? Like, so let's, like, if we're going to do a sub-Q injection, walk me through that real quick, unless I know, like, we just did it. And then doing a quick debrief outside of the room afterward, going, okay, that was great. Or, hey, next time, let's make sure that you know a little bit more about those meds when you go in. So you are projecting a little more confidence or knowledge about, whatever the feedback is. But I think it helps because meds, med administration is such a critical part of nursing, and we are appropriately teaching our students to be very diligent and careful about med admin. So it's the thing that they're like, did I do it right? So it's always helpful to go like, yeah, you did it. You did it well,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
should be proud.
That quick
So,
huddle outside the room
yep,
is so
yeah.
helpful.
Um, we had some other things we want to talk about. I think we should wrap this one up because I feel like we're hitting it. We had some good stuff. Is there anything else med administration wise you want to?
I think that the biggest thing is not take on too much at first.
Yeah,
Definitely don't feel like you have to do a bunch of students at first until you get a routine down, until you get to know the learners and the unit if it's new to you as well, right? You got to also think about yourself and if it is a unit you're familiar with or not familiar with, because then you have to slow down and be even safer um, than if it's a place where you are in that situation and have a good routine down. And so, you know, every situation is going to be different. You want to kind of make sure you're meeting the objectives and the students' learning needs, but also kind of always prioritizing patient safety.
yeah. I um I think starting slow is a good one. And starting with PO meds is a really great with like they're actually kind of complex, especially when you got the different types of packaging, right?
Hmm.
Starting
It's
with
challenging to get students to respect that part because
yeah.
they want to do the like more psychomotor pieces. So I agree when they are newer and it's first time. Yeah.
Like let's make sure we're watching how this person swallows when they're drinking the water with the meds, right? So we'll come back next time and talk about some of those other special circumstances. I'm glad it was a good week. See you next time.
Same here. We'll keep pushing forward. Teaching in scrubs.